This is file 9A. I'm opening it tonight. The paper smells old, like damp canvas and time, and the handwriting shakes a little in the margins. He wasn't writing this for a report. He was writing so somebody would finally listen. I'll read it how he told it. They told us it was a simple training run, cold weather recon, 3-man unit, standard drills. Nothing special. We'd done harder, worse, in places that didn't even have names. But the moment the helicopter peeled off and left us on that Alaskan beach, something in my gut turned over. You ever feel that? Like the ground's too still, the air's too thick, and the world's holding its breath? That was Port Chatham. The pilot didn't even touch down. He hovered just above the sand, nose twitching like the chopper had instincts of its own. We jumped, knees buckling in the gravel. The fog folded around us like a living thing. One blink and the bird was gone. Its blades faded to a whisper. Then nothing. No echo. No sea wind. Just stillness. The bay stretched gray and flat. Driftwood stacked like bones along the tide line. Behind us, the old cannery crouched against the hillside, a carcass of iron and rot. Tin roofs curled up like torn skin. Pilings jutted from the mud, black teeth gnawed by salt. You could taste rust in the air. It was just the three of us, me, a kiddish kid named Miller, and Doc. Miller was fresh. Still believed discipline could scare the dark away. Doc was the kind of man who noticed things most people stepped over. Forestry, before the army, said the woods talked if you knew how to listen. That stuck with me. We set up camp near what used to be the loading dock. The boards groaned under our boots, every sound swallowed by fog before it could travel. I had Miller pitch the tents low, smear mud across the tarps. Doc got the stove going, flame tiny and blue. We didn't need heat so much as something to look at that proved the world still worked. Dinner was cold rations and silence. Miller finally broke it. You know they say this place clears itself out, he said. Meaning? Whole town left one day. Boats still tied up. Breakfast on tables. People gone. Locals say something drove them out. Doc didn't look up. Something always drives people out. Ice, taxes, bad luck. But I saw his eyes flick to the tree line. When the dark came, it came quick. No twilight, just a snap. We ran one last perimeter. I walked 50 meters out, red lens low, breath fogging under the mask. No wind through needles, no owls, not even the drip of water. The forest didn't move. The first sound hit just after midnight. A small clack, stone on wet wood. Then another, from the opposite side of camp, too measured to be random. I whispered, Miller, you moving? No, Sarge. Doc's voice came low. Wind? There's no wind. We waited. Nothing followed, but the smell rolled in next. Wet fur. Rot. Like an animal den that had been closed too long. The kind of smell that clings to your tongue. The kind that makes you want to swallow hard, just to prove you still can. I didn't unzip the tent. Couldn't. Hands stayed frozen on the rifle, listening to the blood in my ears. I told myself it was nerves. The mind inventing ghosts in a dead place. That's what I told myself until I felt the ground breathe. You know how soft moss can feel like memory foam? This wasn't that. This was the earth pushing back under me, slow and deliberate, as if something huge shifted somewhere beneath the roots. The air thickened. My teeth ached like I'd bitten a live wire. Then it stopped. Everything did. I counted until numbers blurred and morning came gray and thin. Miller looked wrecked, eyes bloodshot, grin cracked, but holding. He boiled water for coffee like it mattered. Locals call it the hairy man, he said. Bigfoot's angry cousin. Snatches people. Smells like garbage fire. Doc stirred his tin of oatmeal without looking up. "No ravens," he said again. "There's always ravens." We followed the plan anyway. That's what soldiers do. Up the ridge, test the radio, come back. The path wound through spruce, slick with mist. Moss gave under every step, releasing that wet forest breath, the kind that smells alive but feels empty. Halfway up, we stopped. There were prints, not bare, not boot, bare feet, wide, heavy enough that water pooled in them. 18 inches heel to toe, maybe more. Doc crouched low, didn't touch the ground. "Too flat," he murmured, like something that forgot how to be human. I told him to photograph it. He did, but even the picture looked wrong, blurred around the edges like the camera didn't want to keep the image. At the top, the radio gave us static. A low wheeze, nothing clean. I logged the failure, same as always. Writing things down makes fear small. We turned back, slow, eyes scanning the trees. Halfway down, we found a stump scarred with gouges. Long, shallow cuts, each one ending in a curl like fingers dragging through wet bark. Doc ran his light over it and shook his head. Not axe, not claws either. Miller gave a nervous laugh. Maybe the locals decorate weird. Nobody laughed with him. We reached camp before dark. I made sure the bell tripline was tight. Brass could lecture me later. We ate in silence. Steam rose from the pot, then drifted away, disappearing halfway up. Fog eats everything in Port Chatham, even heat. The second night was worse. The scream came out of nowhere, thin at first, then climbing until it rattled your teeth. It didn't stop at the top. It kept bending, reshaping, like it was searching for a tone that could break bone. Then it dropped into a low moan that vibrated the ground. I've heard wolves, bears, even cougars. This wasn't any of them. It sounded deliberate, like language that never learned words. We all sat up. No one had to say rifles. We already had them. The sound cut off mid-breath. Then for a heartbeat, the forest erupted. Small things running, wings flapping once, twice, and silence again. You could feel the quiet afterward, like the whole valley had sucked in air and forgotten how to exhale. Nobody slept. By dawn, our nerves were frayed enough that the kid kept checking the tree line every 30 seconds, finger twitching on the trigger guard. Doc's face looked carved from the same wood as the trees. We packed slow. You don't rush in that kind of quiet. It feels like breaking a rule you can't see. When I crawled from my tent, both theirs were open. Steam still rose from the pot. Miller's spoon rested on a rock like he'd set it down mid-bite. Doc's ruck sat open, sleeping bag half rolled, flap bent back. Their rifles leaned against the log exactly where I'd told them to keep them. Neat. Perfect. Too perfect. I called their names. No answer. No footprints near the tents. No sign of a fight. The moss was smooth, undisturbed, except for a trail of boot prints heading north toward the woods. Measured, even steps. No panic. No hurry. And there, beside them, the other tracks. Bigger, heavier, deep enough that the earth seemed to sigh under the weight. I felt something inside me tilt. The air got thick again. That hum returned, low, in the chest like standing near an engine through a wall. The radio crackled once, coughed, and died. And for the first time, I felt watched not from the trees, but from everywhere. I should have followed procedure, should have stayed put, built a signal fire, waited for rescue. That's what the handbook says. But you can't tell a mother you left her son in the fog. So I followed, The trail wound uphill, boot prints and those massive shapes side by side, moving in rhythm like a parade. The forest closed behind me, swallowing my tracks as fast as I made them. Every sound felt staged. My own breath too loud, my heartbeat a drum for something else to follow. Half a mile in, I reached the creek. That's where I saw it. A piece of driftwood laid flat, almost like an altar. On top, Miller's dog tags, a folded photo, a patch cut clean from his sleeve. A streak of red liquid, small but fresh, curved across the wood like a signature. No sign of a struggle, no panic. Just arrangement. I burned it. Not because it helped, but because leaving it there felt like permission. Smoke rose in slow spirals, and I swear it turned the same direction as the wind, before the air stilled again. That's when I heard the step. Not close, not far, just heavy enough to bend moss and make the ground sigh. I turned, rifle up, breath sharp in my throat, and that's where the first part of the file ends. Just a note scrawled sideways in the margin. It was watching me, not hiding, watching. The air was thick enough to chew. I remember that first. The fog swirled, slow, lazy, like it knew it had the upper hand. I held the rifle steady, finger straight, breath caught halfway. The sound came again, a single wet step, then another. It was pacing me, patient, the way a big cat moves when it already knows what you'll do next. I wanted to call out, but my throat closed. My voice felt like it didn't belong to me anymore, so I listened instead. The thing stopped just short of the tree line. The shape was wrong. Not man, not bear. Something in between, and older than both. It stood half in the fog, half out. Shoulders sloped forward, head sunk low between them. Hair matted, dripping with dew or sea mist. I couldn't tell. Its breath steamed in slow bursts, not quick like an animal's. It exhaled like it was thinking. Then it moved back. Not afraid. Just gone, absorbed into the gray. I didn't chase. Couldn't. The silence afterward was worse than the sound. I kept the rifle raised for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 50. Time folds in on itself. When your heartbeat's the only clock left ticking. When I finally moved, the forest moved with me. Every branch seemed to lean in. Every step echoed longer than it should have. I followed the trail another quarter mile, boots sinking into ground that shouldn't have been that soft. That's when I found Doc's field pack, unzipped. Everything still inside except his med pouch. The straps were wet. Not with water, not blood either. Something thick and sticky, black in the low light. Smelled like iron and dirt. I wiped it off with my sleeve. Mistake. The smell followed me all the way back to camp. I didn't make it, though. Somewhere between the ridge and the creek, the woods changed shape. Paths turned back on themselves. A tree I'd marked with my knife wasn't there anymore, then was again 50 yards away. You ever walk in circles and know you're being led? That's what it felt like. It wasn't just the land. It was something's intention. The fog thickened again until I could only see my boots. The hum came back, low in the chest, vibrating the bones around my heart. It didn't sound like a noise anymore. It felt like a message, a rhythm. Slow, deliberate. Step, step, stop. Then silence. That's when I started to hear Miller. At least, I thought it was him. His voice, thin, far away. Sarge. I spun. Nothing. Fog and trees. Another whisper, closer this time. Just over my shoulder. I knew he was gone. But the voice didn't care what I knew. I started to run, not away, just anywhere that wasn't there. Branches whipped at my face. I didn't feel them. The hum rose in my ribs until I could taste metal. I broke out onto the beach before I realized the forest had released me. The sky was trying to turn light, but the fog refused to let it. The tide had pulled out, leaving black sands slick with seawater. That's when I saw the footprints again, those massive bare prints marching down the beach toward the water. And beside them, 2 sets of boots, Miller and Doc, still walking with it. The prints stopped near a rotted skiff half buried in kelp. Then nothing. No drag marks, no signs of bodies pulled under. Just nothing. The skiff's hull was cracked, but I started digging anyway, hands bleeding before the shovel ever came out of my pack. If I could just get it free, maybe. The smell hit first. That same rot, heavier now, than the pressure. Like something behind me filled the air I was breathing, and there wasn't enough left for both of us. I turned. Fog rolled across the sand, thick as milk, and through it, movement. Tall, broad, too steady to be a trick of mist. It didn't stalk. It didn't charge. It walked, slow, deliberate, straight toward the waterline. And when it reached the edge, it stopped and turned back toward me. I swear it looked right at me through that haze. 2 eyes, not glowing, not bright, just there. Heavy, intelligent, tired maybe. Then it raised one arm, not like a wave, not like a threat, just lifted it, straight out, palm open, pointing toward the sea. Every instinct screamed to run the other way, but something in me knew better. You don't ignore a gesture like that. So I turned, and I started pushing the skiff. The tide caught under it and helped. The wind didn't fight me. I rowed with my hands first, then with the broken oar. The fog closed behind me like a curtain sealing a stage. After a while, I stopped hearing the hum. The smell faded too. I don't know how long I rowed before I saw light, just a pale glow breaking through the gray. A fishing trawler, anchored offshore. They pulled me aboard, wrapped me in a blanket, asked the usual questions. Where's your unit? Where'd you launch from? What happened to your gear? I told them training exercise. Lost contact. Got separated. They didn't believe it, but they didn't push. Men don't ask too many questions when the ocean spits one of us back up. Back at base, command called it mechanical failure. No mention of missing personnel. No recovery team. They folded the report into a stack of others and moved on. But I didn't. Because something about that gesture, the arm raised, the direction, stuck in my head. Pointing toward the water, not away from it. Like it wasn't warning me to leave, but telling me where they went. He stopped writing there for a bit. There's a stain on the page, coffee or maybe something darker. And the next lines are crooked, like he wrote them days later. He continued, I keep hearing it. The hum. Some nights it comes through the wall before sleep takes me, like it's still trying to talk, still waiting for me to answer. The brass gave me a new post, said I was lucky to make it out. But when I close my eyes, I don't see luck. I see that open hand in the fog, and I can't decide if it was mercy or invitation. One night, the lights flickered. Generator hum cut out. Backup kicked in a second later. No big deal. Happens all the time. Except the hum that filled the silence wasn't from the generator. It was lower. Familiar. The same rhythm. Step, step, stop. It came from nowhere and everywhere, rattling the glass, crawling through the pipes. The other guys didn't stir. I don't think they could hear it. I lay there and listened until the sound thinned out and left the air hollow again. After that, I stopped sleeping much, started writing things down. Dates, times, locations, patterns. The hum came closer each time, always right before I got transferred. Then one morning, An unmarked envelope slid under my door. No sender. No stamp. Inside was a single photo, grainy, black and white, taken at dusk. The shoreline. Port Chatham. 2 silhouettes standing in the surf, shoulder to shoulder. Too tall for men. Too still to be anything else. And right there in the corner, in the sand, my name carved out in block letters, half buried by the tide. I burned the photo that night. Didn't help. Next morning, my CO handed me transfer papers stamped, classified, Echo 6. Told me I was going where they send the unreported. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. You learn when curiosity is permission and when it's suicide. They briefed me on the flight. Said there are things the record doesn't keep. Said our job is to collect the stories that never make it into the files. The ones whispered in barracks, in field hospitals, in mess halls at 2 a.m. The stories that sound like madness until they line up too perfectly to ignore. So now I read other men's ghosts for a living. Port Chatham was just the first. Every time I open a new file, I hear that hum waiting underneath the paper, patient and steady. Maybe it's the same thing that found me out there. Maybe it's just memory. Either way, I keep listening. He ended his report with one last paragraph, short and uneven, like he was losing light. If anyone ever finds this file, if you ever read these words, remember this. Not everything that watches you wants to harm you. Some things just want you to look back long enough to know they're real. The final line trails off mid-sentence, a half word written across the margin, then nothing. Tell me something. After everything you just heard, what do you think really happened out there? Because the report stops cold, but something sure as hell kept going.